like I said, I was sitting pretty with my own today, so it was not a problem for me. But it got me thinking about it, and so this is the product of that thinking. I get to share it with you. There will be trivia questions, and I have these little squishy stress poos, which I will fling at you if you answer correctly. And I also have stickers, so just let me know if you'd rather have a sticker or a stress poo. Okay. We're stress poo today. So let's talk about, what did we use before toilet paper? Anybody? Leaves. Anybody else?
I'll say corn shuck.
Corn shuck? Yeah? What do you want? Do you want to?
I'll take the poop back because I think that'll be a talking point for my coworkers and I.
Corn shuck? Anybody else?
Oh, newspaper.
Newspaper?
Oh yeah, I heard that one.
Yeah. You are all correct. Corn husks, sand. Ooh, sand. Moss, I know, right? Like moss, leaves, and wool. So, what do you notice about all of these items? Like, what's the common thread between all of these?
Exfoliation?
Very natural, very biodegradable.
Biodegradable. So, the two rules when it comes to what we use for toilet paper, it has to be plentiful and it has to be free, right?
Oh.
So, if you think about corn husks, those are around after you husk the corn. Sand is everywhere. Moss, leaves, and also wool, especially if you have, you're sharing sheep. You can spare some, right? So those are kind of the two things I want you to keep in your head as we continue looking at different ways, different things we used to clean ourselves through history. So let's go back to the Greco-Roman period where sharing was caring. So back then there was actually something called a communal sponge. It was a sponge on a stick. And after you would use it, you would dunk it in a bucket of vinegar, and then the next person would use it. This wasn't terribly.
It's like the windshield cleaner at the gas station.
Can you imagine the gas station communal sponge? Oh my god! But it led to outbreaks of typhoid and cholera,
I can only
as
imagine.
you would think. And also, it was really something different about. Back then, you notice these latrines are open. You would sit and talk with people. Like, you would talk shit about your political.
Is that where that term came from?
Exactly, maybe. Like about your political enemies, maybe, or like what's going on, kind of day-to-day business. So, you might think that rich people had it better, right? Because they had a private latrine. But they had a different problem because they would often put the latrine next to the kitchen.
Oh my.
Because they wanted to dispose of food, they were trying to be efficient. And then what would happen is the gases would build up because of bacteria and they would often catch on fire. So you can't win, basically. It's the communal sponge or a blazing inferno. So let's talk about pottery. Remember we talked about plentiful and free. So one thing that was plentiful and free in ancient Rome and Greece was pottery. So this is called pissoi, and it doesn't sound like really nice, right? Like it's kind of like how we cringed when we saw sand. As a result, there were a lot of people with hemorrhoids back in ancient Greece and Rome because it was so rough on your skin. But the Greeks took it a step further with something called ostraka. So have you heard of the term ostracism?
Mm-hmm.
So if you ostracize someone, that means that you cast somebody out, right? Make them an outsider. So in ancient Greece, you could, in certain cities, like in Athens, I believe, you could vote to ostracize someone, kind of cast them out for up to 10 years. I think we should bring it back. But you would write the name of your enemy on a piece of pottery in order to vote for them to be removed from the community, and then reuse it to wipe your behind.
Oh, wow.
So it gives new meaning to the phrase like shitting on your enemies, right? So that's what was going on there. The cons of this, like I said, were skin irritation and hemorrhoids. So still not great. So let's talk about shit sticks. in China, and I don't even know how you would do that in sign language. In China and Japan. So, like we said, something plentifully available that is free. So these were actually introduced into China and Japan from India, and it was a small rod or a stake that was used to wipe away excrement. You all look horrified.
So was it reusable or was it just a one-time
I don't think
thing?
this one. I think this was a one and done situation. It wasn't like the communal sponge. Yeah, it was basically whatever you could find, and I'm sure a lot of people used like scrap cloth and rags or whatever they could find. So it's just whatever was around. Oh. Where was toilet paper first invented? Raise your hands. I got a squish.
Yes, Egypt.
No. It's very sandy, very dry. I think you're onto something though with like, why'd you pick Egypt?
Papyrus.
Okay, you're onto something. Anybody else? So, China. So China gave us paper, and you can see here, basically they would beat up paper pulp, kind of like with papyrus, and then you would suspend it in water, and you would use a decal and a mold to get it into the water. Has anybody here made paper?
Yes.
It's a lot of fun, right? So basically you have the paper pulp, it's in the water, and then you take a wire decal, and then there's a mold on top of that, you put it underneath, and then you pull it up, and the water drains, and then you have paper. Now that I've actually made paper, it's kind of made me look at this process differently, because it is incredibly soft, the paper that you do make. So it was invented in China, and so we have some accounts of travelers in 6th century medieval China. So here's a quote from a scholar official from 589 CE, where he says, "Paper on which there are quotations or commentaries from the 5 classics or the names of sages I dare not use for toilet purposes." So they have standards, so they're not gonna like defile the classics, kind of. And then from an Arab traveler to China, he wrote, "The Chinese do not wash themselves with water when they have done their necessities, they only wipe themselves with paper." So by the early 14th century, the Chinese were manufacturing toilet paper at the rate of 10 million packages with 1,000 to 10,000 sheets annually. And these are not the sheets that we think of today, where it's just a little square. These things were 2 by 3 feet long, which, when you think about it, makes sense, right? Because you're putting it in a mold and you're getting it out of the paper bath. And in 1393, 15,000 sheets of paper were produced for the Hongwu Emperor's imperial family alone, and they were perfumed. So it paid to be royalty back then. But they're the ones who give us toilet paper. And we're going to get into mass-produced toilet paper, but this is where it starts, essentially. In Europe, in the 1700s, they used, there was something called bum fodder, where they would, you guys have heard of Pulp Fiction, right? Like the idea of Pulp Fiction. It's because these stories are printed on very pulpy, soft paper. So what would happen is after you would read, some kind of Pulp Fiction, you could reuse it as bum fodder. So here we have a 1792 French revolutionary depicting the French population using a monarchist manifesto as toilet paper. So it's really like your ideas are good for nothing except wiping the bum. So you probably heard that, where it's like I wouldn't wipe the bum, that kind of thing. And so that would continue. Here's another example of a very pulpy kind of volume where you would use it to wipe your bum after. And so that's in Europe during the 1700s. Let's talk about catalogs. So Sears and Roebuck was a catalog that was in every home. Their goal was to get a catalog in every American home, and so it was plentiful, it was available, and people used it as toilet paper. Until 1930, when the catalog started using glossy paper. People were outraged because this thing that they come to depend on was no longer available to them. So the Old Farmer's Almanac came out in 1815, and you may have noticed that today it has a hole on the corner. And I really love that because that's just an indication of the Farmer's Almanac. They were like, we know people are using this for that purpose, let's just make it easier for you. So you can see a very early version of the Farmer's Almanac in 1818 has a little string attached that somebody has kind of rigged together. But yeah, I love the Farmer's Almanac for that. So that was in 1919 that they added the pre-drilled hole to make it easier for consumers. So what year was toilet paper invented in the United States?
Right then and there when that happened, probably 1819.
1819? No. 1883? Between those two numbers. Anybody else want to give a guess?
1830.
No. It was 1857. So we got in 1857, it was called Gaetti's medicated paper. And I really feel bad for him because, so this is 1857, Joseph C. Gaetti, and he really was ahead of his time, right? Because we don't have, mass-produced toilet paper like we have today at this time. So I'll just read to you the description. So it says, each sheet was of pure manila hemp paper. It was watermarked J.C. Gaetti, New York. The original product contained aloe as a lubricant and was marketed as an anti-hemorrhoid medical product. It did not take off. So he's really fighting that free and plentiful, kind of idea because the Sears Roebuck catalog had not switched to glossy paper yet. So people were still using the catalog, or they were using the Farmer's Almanac, and so it didn't really take off. So yes.
Well, I guess they're also using newspaper as well.
Probably, yeah. That's funny because I think we're going to talk about it later, but I believe a paper in Australia, when the pandemic happened, they printed several blank sheets in their newspapers so people could use them. So yes, 100%. So yeah, that makes total sense. So that's probably why it's like, why would I pay for this when I can get it for free? And to give you an idea of the cost, it costs 50 cents for 500 sheets, which is about $18 today. And then Scott, which would come later, was 1,000 sheets per roll, which was sold for 10 cents each, which totaled about $4 today. So it wasn't the best in terms of quality bang for your buck, essentially. All that to say.
But this is really the precursor of the Preparation H wipes.
Yes, 100%. But unfortunately, it didn't take off during the time. But he's kind of he's a blip in the kind of evolution of toilet paper in the United States. So one of the big reasons why, or what do you think is the reason why we moved from stuff like Sears and Roebuck to toilet paper?
The glossy paper.
The glossy paper. Or why did we move to toilet paper instead of just using newspaper? Because newspaper is still available. Yeah.
Well, I mean the title of this outhouse to indoor.
Yes.
If you have
Yes.
indoor plumbing, it's a lot harder to flush it
Yeah.
down. Roebuck.
I love here how we
Page.
have, I think it is a Sears and Roebuck catalog, right?
Yeah.
So with an outhouse, it's a hole in the ground, and you can just chuck it in, right? Versus indoor plumbing, it's gonna be a lot more fussy, right? And so we need something that is smaller, that is more compact, that is more easily disintegratable in water,
Yeah.
basically, because you don't want to screw up your pipes. All those beautiful pipes you spend so much money investing in. So let's talk about the patent, and this is the one that Danielle was talking about. So this is the patent office. They issued this patent to Seth Wheeler for his company, which was, what is it called? Oh, so he's an inventor, Seth Wheeler of Albany, and he patented the wrapping or toilet paper roll. And his was the first business to sell toilet paper on a roll. And we can finally put to rest the heated debate over whether you put paper under or over, because as we can see, it is correctly depicted here as over in the patent. So that's what Danielle was saying, where it's like, this is correct, right? So this is one of the first companies to actually sell toilet paper on the roll and develop a process for actually creating it. So you can see here that it's still quite a long sheet that they're creating, and then they're slicing it into even smaller sheets. You've heard of Scott, right? Huge toilet paper brand. So what's really interesting I find about Scott is that they produced toilet paper since 1879, but because it was such a taboo product, they didn't put their name on the product initially. That name that we now know nowadays. So they didn't want to soil the family name with such a lewd product, so they sold their tissue to private dealers who would then put their own packaging on it. And I love this Fold'em toilet paper, Bonafide, and the Waldorf, right? And what happened is we, as time went on, it became more commonplace. It wasn't as, we're still very prudish nowadays, but it was more kind of, it became more associated with like hygiene and stuff. And we're going to talk about one particular company, Charmin, who made that change. And so it became more acceptable. So they actually, in the end, bought the Waldorf brand and they sold it as like a high-end toilet paper. That's the Scott Brothers. Let's talk about toilet paper obsessed bears and Charmin. So Charmin does the job of really rehabbing the concept of toilet paper. So it takes it from this very like lewd, shameful kind of like product to something that is quite wholesome. So they would feature women in their advertisements, like they appealed to housewives, and then also depicted children. I don't quite know how we got to bears. Maybe someone can explain that to me later. But it's like fluffy and
You
soft.
do know what it's referring to,
The
right?
bear in the woods?
Yes, that's where that comes from. Yes.
With a rabbit, is that the one?
It's a lot.
The red.
The rat. But Charmin is really responsible for transforming how we think about toilet paper in the United States from this very kind of like naughty product or something that you should talk about in polite company to something that's incredibly wholesome. And they use women and babies to do it, and bears. So.
And Mr. Whipple.
Mr. Whipple? Who's Mr. Whipple?
Don't squeeze the
Who is
sugar.
Mr. Whipple?
Oh my God, I don't even remember.
How did you miss that in your research?
It was a TV commercial.
Okay.
70s and 80s.
Yeah.
Like he's a guy in the grocery store, right?
He said, "Don't squeeze the Charmin."
Squeeze the Charmin?
Yeah,
Oh,
look
that's
it
so
up.
funny.
Whipple.
Oh, that is so
W-H-I-P-P-L-E.
That is so funny.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I didn't even, I'm
You
sorry
kids these days.
I'm sorry for living on Mr. Whipple. Don't squeeze the Charmin. It's like, where's the beef?
I was more upset that Jefferson Starship sold the rights to their song for the toilet paper.
Oh my God. Okay, so we have another trivia question, another chance to earn a poo. What was the biggest problem with early mass-produced toilet paper, do you think? It's a new process. We're working out the kinks.
Splinters.
Yes! Oh my God!
Oh, wow.
It was a huge problem.
Oh my God.
Imagine you've had a long day, you've done your business, and you go to wipe yourself, and oh!
That catalog's not looking so bad now, is it?
Exactly. So, companies would actually address this problem in their advertising. Northern Tissue, who you probably know about as well, a major toilet paper company, they plastered all of these advertisements in like magazines and catalogs, and it's so manipulative, but it's hysterical. It's like, careful, mother, careful. There are no splinters in Northern Tissue, right? So this was a huge selling point. So they were the first to develop a splinter-free roll of toilet paper, so that you could wipe with impunity. Yes.
I mean, in today's toilet paper, I cannot imagine
A
having
splinter?
splinters.
Yeah.
So what kind of paper were they using back then?
It was still the same in terms of like they were taking trees. I think they had not perfected the pulping process, and so there would be a few stray. There was an issue with quality control.
I guess so.
And it
Now
does say
we
by
have to worry about that.
microscope, so it's not talking like logs.
Yeah.
On the
Even
left,
invisible splinters
yeah.
are dangerous. So you can see here, this is the quilted northern, and then here's like the splinter from the competitor. So even a small one could ruin your day, right? So now we don't have that issue, thank God. And they're the ones who created their toilet paper with a quilted pattern. So that's why we have quilted board. So let me ask the audience, over or under, which do you think is correct? How many people put their toilet paper under? Over?
Only if you have children in the house. I put it under.
Wait, only over if you have
No,
children?
over, there's no children in. Under, there's children.
Or like, I think it also matters if you have a cat, right?
Yeah,
Because if you
yeah.
do over, that cat's just gonna.
They're gonna get it no matter what.
Okay, that's true.
And that is not how the patent application was filed.
That is not how the patent application.
It was not how it was designed.
How it
Sometimes
was
things
designed.
improve.
Yeah, it's like, what is it, GIF versus GIF? Like the originator says.
Yeah, but what problem would you be solving by doing it the other
You
way?
get better leverage that way.
I was
No.
gonna say you use
I
less
love
sheets
this.
if
I
you
love
go
this.
under versus over.
No, no.
The toilet paper wars continue to this day.
Yep. I'll actually fix it when I'm someplace where they have it
Let
wrong.
it go. So that way they can't.
They can't, yeah.
It has
It's more portion
extraordinary
control.
benefits.
It's more portion control if you do under versus over.
Nah.
So, for sure. So which comedian famously debated the proper way to hang toilet paper, over or under?
Which comedian?
Yes.
I don't know, Gallagher?
Got a poo for you.
Sounds like something George Carlin.
Yes!
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I hit you.
Flying poop.
George Carlin.
What?
Yeah, I just remember his skit about the couch squishing. That's one of my favorites. Let's see. So, this is like I said, this presentation has a Trojan horse in it. So we've talked about toilet paper for quite a while. Now I want to talk about cleaning up with water and like where that comes from, essentially. So, when it comes to cleaning with water, it's usually common in Catholic countries and in countries that are majority Muslim, because there are very strict rules about cleanliness in those cultures, right? So here are some examples of the loda from India. It's just a very simple pitcher that you would use to clean up afterwards. And the aftabe from Iran. It's really funny because my friend is Iranian, and after the pandemic happened, I remember she posted something on Facebook that was like, if you need an aftabe, just call your Iranian friend. Like, if you are you out of toilet paper, call your Iranian friend. They'll get you an aftabe. So that's kind of the, like I said, those are the cultures in which this is most common, which makes a lot of sense, right? It's about cleanliness instead of, what was I trying to say? Convenience.
Splash.
Oh, sorry, I should preface. This is a music video from an artist in the Philippines who is going to explain to you how they do it in the Philippines.
Splash.
Be a man, use your hand, If you ever come to Pilipinas, this will be your bestest friend in life. I had to do a number 2, so I went into the restroom, but there was no toilet paper on my. Soapy hands, soapy butt, soapy all. Splash, I use tabo. Splash, I use tabo. I use tabo. I use tabo. Fill your tabo up before entering the stall. Splash, I use tabo. Splash, I use tabo. I use tabo. I use tabo. I'm squeaky clean down, yeah. Super clean underwear. To use it in Manila. After moving to Pilipinas, so my business is brightening. I use papaya soap for whitening. I use it for brushing my teeth. I use it when I am bleeding. I use it for black watering. I use it for CR cleaning. Filipinos love when we clean. Leave the tabo up in the sink. No toilet paper, that's a better thing. This tabo water's gonna help you clean. I do eliminate that. Use this container here to wash yourself and then brush it. Soapy soapy hands, soapy butt, soapy toe. Splash, ayos tabo. Splash, ayos tabo. Ayos tabo, ayos tabo. Bill tabo up before entering the store. Splash, ayos tabo. Splash, ayos tabo. Ayos tabo, ayos tabo. I love my tabo, yeah. Just more tabo, yeah. I use some toilet paper, I just use soap and water to wash my dirty bottom. I smell like candy cotton cause I am a Filipino. I am Matalino, I have many tabos. Look at this dry roll, I can clean up with that. When I do number 2, I need 2 rolls of that. Too much how clean I be, with soap and all of that. But will I use this floor? Do I look like a cat? Been living in Manila 6 years now, I know how to use tabo in the CR, let me show you now. Grab your tabo and don't forget your favorite sound. Wash your bottom well, now you're a Filipino. Soapy, soapy hands, soapy butt, soapy toe. Splash, I use tabo. Splash, I use tabo. I use tabo. I use tabo. Fill your tabo up before entering the store. Splash, I use tabo. Splash, I use tabo. I use tabo. I use tabo. Phoenix, when Phoenix, yeah. I'm squeaky clean now.
I remember when the pandemic happened, I was interested in a towel and I got one. I am not that flexible, so I did not make it work. And obviously he uses it for many things, but you have multiple towels. So you would not use your cleaning towel with your toothbrushing towel or with your, flower watering towel. So, but they definitely do come in handy. So now that we've talked about washing with water, let's talk about bidets. We've already kind of talked about this. What does bidet mean in French? Does anybody know? Bidet. It actually means little horse because you would mount it like a little horse. So here's an example of a very early French bidet. And here's a portrait of the morning wash, a woman on a bidet from 1790. So bidets were invented in France, and this is probably part of the reason why the British and Americans don't take too well to bidets, because it kind of represents like this French aristocracy kind of hedonistic culture. So before bidets, it was the chamber pot, but bidets were a luxury item that were associated with aristocracy. It was also used as a primitive form of birth control. So after a woman had sexual intercourse, she could clean herself up in the bidet. This is also another reason why the British and Americans are incredibly squeamish about bidets, is because the first place they encountered it was in brothels during World War II. And it can also help with menstruation and cleaning. So this is why later in the United States, since we didn't really adopt bidets, there's not a lot of floor space for it in our bathrooms, but in Europe, countries that did adopt bidets, there's like a separate space for the bidet in the bathroom. So it kind of makes the floor plan bigger, including a bidet. So these are modern bidets, so it's separate from the toilet, and that's kind of how it works. So like I said, in the United States, since we didn't adopt this, having a whole other bidet is really not practical, and we'll get into why that's why kind of toilet attachments are more popular in the United States. So, in which European country are bidets most commonly found? Now we talked about, remember, Catholic and Muslim majority nations. So what country is it most found in? There you go. Yes, it is in Italia. Bidets are most common. So, yes. So you've been to Italy? How was it? Like, is it just every
I
toilet?
couldn't figure out how it went, but everywhere you go, they have tubes. we see over here with the
Yes.
little thing that comes out.
That is called actually a washlet bidet. So it's a different type of bidet. So here's a map of countries that are bidets.
Various types of bidets.
Yes. Oh no. Oh, we're gonna get into it. So here's a map of countries that use bidets. Do you notice anything?
None are in the United States.
Yeah. Here we are in toilet paper wasteland over here.
Well, only a portion of Africa.
But that could have to do with like Muslim majority countries and Catholic majority like we talked about. And it makes sense for the Middle East and for a lot of European countries too. So let's talk about using a standalone bidet. You have experience with this. So was that like, did you have to ask somebody like, how do I use this, or did you just give it a whirl?
No, I didn't even use
Okay.
it. Definitely.
We're very scared of using.
I didn't know if you turned it on, it was gonna spray everywhere.
That's true.
I didn't really understand the whole concept.
That's true. Yeah, it's kind of scary. So here's a video of somebody explaining how to use a standalone bidet if you ever encounter one in, say, Italy.
Sitting on the toilet, you go number 2 because everybody poops. And do your thing, just like normal. And then when you would go to grab toilet paper to wipe, resist the urge. This is where the bidet comes in. Turn on the water. Make sure it's not too hot, not too cold, Goldilocks just right. Then you would keep the water running. I'm not going to because I'm wearing pants. Then you come on over and pop a squat. Just like this, like get comfortable. The water's running, it's cleaning the area. You can help it out with your hands. Some people introduce you soap and actually treat it as this little mini shower situation. Others do not use soap. It's really personal preference. But the ladies, here's how you can also use it if it's that time of the month, for instance. Go front facing. Take that there, turn it on. Clean, and you're good. And you'll often find a towel right here to dry your hands. Please note this is not to dry your nether region. For drying off down there, you have several options. You'll often see 2 towels. One is for your hands and one is for the nether region. Those to pass your clothes if you're unsure. And you can always go to the toilet paper. Not my favorite because it kind of save trees here. Or hair dry.
So I've done a combination of those. So my current system is I do use toilet paper to wipe after, just because for me that's just more comfortable. It does save so much on toilet paper. So I use a service called Who Gives a Crap, and I love it because I buy toilet paper once a year, and I have 54 rolls, and that lasts me the whole year, and that's a 2-person household with bidets. So you're just not using as much. So you talked about how you encountered this. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that? Where were you?
I stayed in the hospital, and I seen in a few like hotels.
So this is just another version, right? And you'll notice with, so they're called bone guns, or bidet showers. They're often in places where the bottom of the floor is tiled and has a drain, right? So it kind of works almost as an extension of the shaft. So that's just another way, another kind of form of bidets. But we're going to talk about the washlet bidet, which is really popular in our country. So why do you think bidets are less popular in America compared to other countries? Why do you think we didn't hop on the bidet train? So floor space, yeah. Anything else?
I can't see children using.
They would just play
It would
with
just
it,
be,
maybe.
it would be everywhere.
It would be everywhere. So there's a passage by a professor and sociologist that I think sums up pretty much everything, so I just want to read it to you. So he's talking about the bidet and how it was invented by French furniture makers in the 18th century. It was rejected by the English who regarded French imports as tainted with hedonism and sexuality of that country. That sentiment, rather than the bidet itself, traveled to America, to Britain. Later, at the turn of the century, installed in an upscale Manhattan hotel incited public protest, resulting in their. Can you imagine being so pressed about the days at a hotel? They,
Oh, because they
public
were assuming it
protest.
with prostitutes and
Exactly.
brothels.
And so it's like associated with immorality, and it's like, how dare you have that? So they had to be removed. And then during World War II, the bidets suffered another blow when American soldiers encountered them in European brothels. Remember, we talked about how it was an early form of birth control. Perpetuating this idea that bidets were associated with like filth and immorality. So this is why bidets have never really taken off in the United States. And it was not for lack of trying. So we're going to talk about these brave men who tried to make bidets a thing in the United States. So we have John Harvey Kellogg. Yes, that Kellogg.
I was gonna say that Kellogg's
The Kellogg's cornflake. I have to do a separate presentation on him someday because apparently do you know that he developed cornflakes because he wanted, it was this thing where he felt like disease and things were caused by people being too sexually aroused. So he wanted to create the blandest cereal to kind of dampen Americans' sensuality and sexuality to help with their health, for the sake of their health. So he had a couple of wild ideas. So I don't agree with the cereal. I do agree with the bidet. So he had a patent in 1924 for an anal douche. And this is probably why it did not take off, because it was called an anal douche. So this was kind of like the first salvo in the battle for bidets in the United States. And it wouldn't really take off until the 1960s. So here we have Arnold Cohen of Brooklyn, New York. He started the American Bidet Company. I love that logo with all the droplets of water. It's so great. And it's so colorful. It's very 60s. And so he started this company, and he started it because his father had a medical condition that made going to the doctor difficult, and he actually created it for his father. And he's like, so many more people would benefit from this. His bidets featured an adjustable spray nozzle with a warm water option, simply to make it a household item. So his whole stated goal was to wean us off of Charmin. And he even had a custom license plate for his Cadillac that read Mr. Bidet. So this guy really practiced what he preached. He really believed in bidets. I wanted to get Americans to use it. But once again, we turned away and did not use bidets. And he says, I installed thousands of my seats all over the suburbs of New York, but then claimed advertising was next to impossible because nobody wants to hear about tushy washing 101. So this is him much later, like showing how one of his bidets works. So his company didn't take off, but the good thing about this is that he sold his patent to a Japanese company called Toto. And they took his patent and they created, in 1989, the Toto washlet. So this is that kind of bidet that we were talking about, like, we don't have the floor space for the big pump and separate bidet, but we can install a bidet on a toilet seat. And this is why this one is most popular in the United States. And nowadays they have so many features. Like a heated seat, you can get pre-mist, it'll do your taxes. I remember I got my dad like one of these really awesome Cadillac bidets. I'm super basic, I just have cold water, I don't even have heated anything, it's very utilitarian. But I got him like heated seats, I got him blow dry at the end, and whenever he had to move very quickly from his house, he said that he grabbed his bidet, his CPAP machine, and his cat in that order. So it was like the three most important things to him. And then the bidet was at the top of the list. Maybe someday I'll have a really fancy bidet. They even have ones where after you're done, it'll rotate the seat and sanitize it for you for next time. That'd be awesome. I'm not in that tax bracket yet. We'll see. So how do you use a washlet bidet?
The right way to use a bidet depends on what kind you're using. But the process is similar for most bidets you'll encounter. For a toilet seat bidet, locate the controls on the side of the seat. After you've gone to the bathroom, press the wash button to clean yourself off. There may also be a button that allows you to move the position of the bidet's nozzle so you can adjust where you're spraying yourself. If you're using a non-electric toilet seat bidet, just turn the knob clockwise to release the water. The more you turn it, the higher the water pressure will be. Toilet seat bidets may also have controls that let you change the temperature of the water.
So yeah, definitely be careful with that crank because you might give yourself an accidental you will be awake, so, in the morning. So, let's talk about what caused the toilet paper shortage in 2020.
Misinformation.
Misinformation. Anything else?
Media.
Exactly. It was panic buying.
Fake news.
There was nothing wrong with like supply lines or the availability of materials. It was just panic buying. People freaked out, and also you have to think about like psychologically the role that toilet paper plays in our lives. It's a comfort option. It's like the guy who don't squeeze the Charmin. And it's like in a time where we weren't getting a lot of information. Do you also remember when we were washing our groceries? Did anybody else do that, or is that just me? So it was a scary time. So like having toilet paper really helps people cope emotionally, psychologically during a very uncertain time where we didn't know what the heck was going on. So I'll talk about a couple of things. So this is the one I mentioned. This is the actual newspaper in Australia that printed empty sheets in their newspaper so people could use them. But you see here, it's just kind of empty sheets of newsprint that they printed. And so this lady sitting on the throne of toilet paper was actually a woman from Australia who accidentally ordered 2,304 rolls of toilet paper. Which I'm like, how do you accidentally order? And also, how do you not notice in your bank account?
Your credit card.
Must be nice. Must be nice. Like I'm watching your bank account like a hawk. But she actually, because she had so much toilet paper, she actually ended up selling it and paying for her kids' college tuition funds. Because people didn't have toilet paper. And then in Japan, there were even armed gangs stealing toilet paper. So one armed gang stole 600 rolls, which is worth around $130 in total from a shop in Japan. So there was like rationing of toilet paper, like you can only get 2 packs essentially. So, and this is what kind of got me going, essentially. This is the catalyst for this presentation. And if you want to use Who Gives a Crap, you can take $10 off your order. I'm not sponsored by them at all. I just really love them as a company. I recently purchased their, I believe it was like their Christmas edition of toilet papers. And it's so cute because you can stack them and they create little notes. And it's really adorable. So if you want to take advantage of that, I do not get a feedback for that. I just really love them. So with the pandemic, there were shifting attitudes towards the bidet. I think people were really desperate for toilet paper, and because of the shortage of toilet paper and the high cost of toilet paper when you could get it, a lot of people were looking for an alternative. So this led to shifting attitudes toward bidets. So here's the results of a survey of about 3,600 people and their attitudes about bidets. 86% of respondents thought that bidets will increase in popularity. 41% considered buying a bidet, but did not purchase one. And then about 34% did purchase one during the pandemic. And then about 88% of those respondents felt that bidets should be more standard across the United States. I don't know about you, but since having bidets, when I have to go to the bathroom outside my home, I feel like an animal. So it's something that I think should be more commonplace. Because it works better than toilet paper in terms of cleanliness. So bidets are enjoying a big boom. There are a lot of benefits to bidets. You save on toilet paper. It's environmentally friendly. There's health benefits because of hygiene. A lot of people are worried that they're not wiping correctly, so it helps with that. And you also feel cleaner, and you're more kind of secure. So these are the reasons that you should, if you don't have a bidet, maybe look into getting it. Oh, I'm sorry, I should preface. So I'll end this presentation conversation with a video, a very old BuzzFeed video, where it's people experiencing the day for the first time.
It's a verb now?
The day, yes, I think so.
I don't know anything about bidets really.
I've never had a need or a want to use one.
The dingleberry issue is a common one for men with sort of my follicle situation.
I'm a little bit scared. I've never had anything in that area before, going up in that area before, so.
The butthole is just like an untapped place for me.
I've seen bidets before. I've never seen one with so many buttons.
There's a wash on button that is very clearly water going up into a butt.
The bidet on button makes no sense. It's like a face, which is freakish.
I do really like this heated seat function. And I think this just needs to be like mandatory in all toilets.
You know, full disclosure, I left one in the chamber this morning so I could get the full effect here.
Oh
so
my
see
goodness.
what's
So, I'm just gonna go all in. This is terrible. Oh, gosh! Oh, wow!
Oh, Jesus, what's going on?
Oh my god, what is this?
Oh,
Oh god, oh, that feels nice.
Oh my god, that's fantastic. It's better if you relax.
like right now, torpedo just like right in there.
He's giving me When Harry Met Sally
I'm
energy.
used to this.
It's a weird sensation having water being sprayed in your butt like this.
I don't know what to compare this to. I've never had this feeling before.
It's like a massage for your anus, but it's wet.
This is fantastic.
It's kind of just making my butt numb.
I feel like because I've
Too
been
hard.
married for a while, my butt feels like it's starting to get a little creamy.
The test. Yeah, smooth.
I would say I did not enjoy what just happened.
My butt feels really clean right now. Like, I didn't know it could be this clean.
I would never use one of these ever again.
That was lovely. I really enjoyed it.
I almost kind of feel like I just peed my pants.
So now I'm confused about what happens because I'm very wet down there. I feel like no matter what, I still need to use toilet paper to at least dry off.
It's not like you just wash your hands and you can like, you know, blot your hands on your pants.
If it had like a little mini blow dryer in there that would like, you
Do you
know,
make them with blow
dry it out,
dryers?
this would be super choice.
Yeah, I mean it's like a flu shot. You know, you don't want it, but once you have it, you're like, okay, that's glad I did it.
But that's once.
Jesus. No.
Back in the BuzzFeed era. But thank you so much for coming. And I'll just end with this where it's like conclusive video evidence that water is better than toilet paper. Because you wouldn't just wipe your dishes with a paper towel, you would wash them, right? So, yeah, I hope you learned something. Thank you so much.